Hi, this is Subham and Aby. So we are currently doing Masters of Applied Computing from University of Windsor. So as a part of our course, which is Comp 817, Advanced Software Engineering Topics, which is being taken by Dr. Yacoub, we are conducting a podcast. And the theme of our podcast is the myth of front end and backend. And for this purpose, we have taken the interview of Kaushik Jaraman, who happens to be a machine learning engineer at Swiss Re. And for as part his consent is concerned, we have taken his consent for the recording. So let's listen to his consent.
So, Kaushik, we wanted to just get your consent for recording this uh, interview. So, we wanted explicit consent from you. So, yeah.
Sure, you
just
can
informing.
record it.
Yeah. So now we will listen to a brief intro about Kaushik Jaraman.
So I'm a machine learning engineer in Swiss Re. So basically here we have a lot of different types of projects.
Okay.
And our team is primarily of data scientists. And I was like the first ML engineer in my team.
Okay.
So mostly the projects that we do is focused on insurance industry, and it's used only within the company, all the tools.
Abby, now can you define what is a front end and a back end model?
Yes, Shubham. So, according to Wikipedia, in software engineering, the terms front end and back end refer to the separation of concerns between the presentation layer and the data access layer in the software. So, it might be the physical infrastructure or the hardware. So, that's what they mean by the data access layer. So, in client server model, we usually consider the client as the front end and the server as the back end. Even when some presentation work is usually done, so the client has some presentation work done, and the backend has most of the data and those work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so essentially, so the front end part is basically the looks and the feels, and the back end part is basically the business logic that we write. So
Yeah.
So let's see as to like what Kaushik has to say about front end back end model.
I think a front end is anything that a client has a direct view on. So any kind of UI, logo, graphics, any interactions that they directly deal with is front end. Backend is where most of the processing takes place. Any kind of algorithms or storing in the database, fetching it. Those would be the backend. So backend is more like an engine, and front end is more like the painting that we see.
So Abby, how do you think the myth of the front end and back end model came up?
Yeah, so I guess since the 90s, we have given less importance to the historically we have found term front end back end, and like we have given the front end work like the client side work, which is like the presentation layer, and we have given it less importance because like we think all the major part is done in the back end. Yeah, so yeah, I think that's when it started. What do you think, Shubham?
So, basically, if you look at, it's not just about the mindset of the people. I think it's more related to the IT industry. So, if we look at since the IT revolution started, the companies used to start hiring developers based on the designation of a front end or a back end engineer. So, since then, this separation or segregation has been done, and it has been inculcated deep in the mind of the people, and that is why this narrative has been going on. So so I think that is one of the primary reasons I believe. And in practice also, people like even if they don't want to do a particular work, just let's say be it a UI or a front end, so that is one of the other reasons why this thing creeps into their mind. So
yeah, I also know many people like who don't like CSS, and so they are like saying they are backend engineers, and
yeah. So just because someone doesn't wants to do a particular tech stack, he or she is.
Yeah, so I agree with that. So like let's go into which is more important. Like we can just discuss what is more important. So let's see what Kaushik says about that.
Okay.
Yeah, specific to my company. So as I mentioned earlier, the products that we build is used only internally within the company. So it's not visible to the external clients or external people. So because of that reason, we don't give much priority to the front end. We only care about the output and backend part.
Okay.
But front end does enhance user experience. So we do go with the basic front end.
Okay.
If you're reaching out to large customer base, like something like Google, which directly goes to consumers. So their UI is very important because customers are going to directly see that, and the way they perceive the UI is very important. And also in something like a gaming industry, again, the UI front-end part is super important. But mostly if you're just backend, if it's just some softwares, then backend is more important.
So Abby, like, what do you think is more important?
Yeah, I guess case to case changes, like according to what I've read and what Kaushik is saying, case to case basis it changes. It was believed like the backend is more complex and everything which happens there should be more optimized. So that's what they used to believe. So yeah, I guess it changes. So according to what is it? Like,
I mean, as far as it is concerned, I mean, if you look at it back in 90s, I mean, when the business logic was the main, the main component, which was the more complicated tasks rather than the front end, because earlier, like, we used to just show the basic UI, which just addresses the basic concerns of a end user, right?
Yeah.
So, but right now, if you look at in backend with the evolution of big data, AI, machine learning, a lot of other thing, DevOps and stuff. So, like, there are several issues related to testability, maintainability, persistence, asynchronicity, state management, and API design. Okay. I mean, which has made us realize that okay, like backend is more complex, and also, I mean, if you look at the front end, also, I mean, since you have to manage this complex data and show a lot of data on UI, I think UI is also is more complex these days. So, what's your view on that?
Yeah. So now JavaScript has many advanced functions to handle like the powerful devices like smartphones, smartwatches. So UI earlier it used to be just like a computer, like the screen used to be just for the monitor, like or a computer. But nowadays it's like more powerful devices, smartphone, iPad.
Yeah.
Like so, for those devices you need much more optimized UI. So we'll also have to follow the principles which you mentioned in the backend.
Yeah. The persistence.
The persistence, testability, maintainability.
Okay.
Yeah, those things. So I guess nowadays both are complex.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, so let's look at as to like what solution is Kaushik providing to like us to how to solve this particular problem.
Yeah.
A full stack developer is basically somebody who handles both the front end part and back end part. So I think it's mostly popular in small startups where they can't afford to hire more number of resources. So they just hire few engineers, and they are pretty much aware of the end to end whatever goes right from the database to the backend to what goes away. Actually, as a full stack engineer, it is more valuable to the company since you can handle any kind of issues. Any bug comes, you are the only person to go to. But that also means that you cannot specialize in a certain area.
Yeah, so just like Kaushik mentioned, the theory also states like today's technology that stack goes a long way down, and like, not a single person can't go in depth into backend or front end. Like a single person. So if we consider full stack developer, he can't go in depth into backend and he can't go into in depth into full time. Like it will take a lot of time, and so that is not a realistic goal. So in addition to this theory also states like the developer should have a mentality, so they should change their mentality to include the back end and the front end. So they shouldn't think like okay, front end is more complex, they shouldn't have that superiority complex, like something like that. Yeah.
So, and even if you look at today in Agile, I mean, when people work together as a follow Scrum and work in the Agile methodology, I mean, every developer is not segregated based on the front end or the back end model. I mean, whichever user story is assigned to whichever individual, he or she has to work on that. I mean, just an individual cannot say that he's working as a full stack or a front end or a back end developer. So I think it's high time for the companies to, prevent splitting the roles into front end and back end. Rather, they should treat them as an engineer. And probably we can also educate about the complexities of front end and back end model to a developer so that, they can focus more on the development rather than focusing on the front end or the back end. Thanks. I mean, that's all like we
Yeah.
had to say for the podcast.
Thank you.
Hmm.